Welcome back to Tweet Trends. Today, I have the awesome experience of interviewing Teresa Johnson Paul. And today, we're going to talk about codependency. I'm not going to say anymore because I am not the expert. Let me go ahead and pass the microphone to you, Teresa. Hey, how are you?
Doing well.
Good to hear. Now, when we first spoke and we were talking about the topic of codependency, I was very intrigued because I feel like that's a topic that not a lot of people talk about. But I imagine there are probably a lot of people that are out there that are dealing with it and maybe they don't even know.
Yeah, I grew up with it, and I had a dysfunctional family, and I noticed that, and I'm sorry to compare myself to television, but I wasn't invited to other people's family homes. I didn't know, I mean, I was, but they were family. So I just knew that there was something different about the way that my father behaved, and certainly my mother, and um, I thought this doesn't this is something off here. There's something not quite right. And I grew up with a lot of anxiety and worry, and I didn't know why.
Was it like
And
social anxiety?
no, it's mainly a lot of worry and anxiety over being, at home, because I was always concerned that my family or my parents were going to get into an argument, or that my dad was going to be upset about something,
Okay.
and always wondering if I was doing the right thing or being the right person for the situation. Or I mean, I literally didn't want to get in trouble. And then that anxiety went over to school too, because if I didn't get good grades or if I didn't behave a certain way, I thought, I was always concerned I was going to get in trouble,
Right.
and I was a particularly good kid. And then my younger sister, because I'm the oldest of four, she honestly didn't care whether she got in trouble. She once told me in high school, she says, I don't care if I get in trouble. At least I got to do the thing and whatever, And she was just so casual and so flippant about it. And I'm like, really? I mean, you don't care whether or not you get in trouble? She's like, no, if I get in trouble, so what? At least I got to do it. I know I'm doing wrong and I don't care.
Wow.
I would just like wanted to borrow my sister's, way about her, because she just had a carefree attitude about everything. And I was always uptight. Even when I was in college, my friends were saying, are you having any fun? Oh yeah. You look uncomfortable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, my dad was very controlling, negative, overbearing. And then and my mom was the doormat, and she was always saying that God must be punishing her for something. And I started going to church with my great aunt Fran when I was 9, and then I'm like, no, I don't think that he does that. And she would cry a lot, and it was just like I couldn't, my dad's father was also treated him poorly. And I don't know anything about my great grandfather, but I had heard stories that my great grandmother was not allowed to go to the hospital to get help for an illness because they couldn't afford it.
Oh, wow.
And my grandfather was full-blooded German, and so it was that mentality that the man in the house was the ruler, and when the table was sat to eat, nobody sat down to eat until my grandfather sat down. And it's like, and then I was noticing that my grandmother never sat during dinner because she was always running around doing this, that, and the other. And I'm like, aren't you going to sit down and enjoy the meal too? And she's like, no, I already ate while I was cooking. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there was just some weird stuff going on. And then just other little things that my mom told me that my grandfather said to my dad when he was younger, growing up. And So I kind of like understood why my dad was the way he was, but I really hated his guts.
Oh,
And for a kid to be like wishing their father dead, because, they just created so much anger and pain, like if you were just be gone, my life would be so much better. When I started dating, I dated a lot of nice guys before I met my ex-husband. But for whatever reason, if they did the slightest little off thing that I just didn't care for, I'd break up with them. Or if I saw the breakup coming, I would break up with them first, so I would avoid that pain. Or there just weren't exciting. They just they
they
didn't
didn't
create
have
a
that
lot
thing
of
your sister
excitement,
had.
and then boy did my ex create quite the excitement when we started dating. I mean, we only dated for like 30 days before found out I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, I mean, I got through all of college without making that happen. And I really think that there was some things that shouldn't have, yeah. And then we broke up a couple of times during those 30 days, and there was just a lot of chaos going on.
Well, hold on, wait a minute. You said you broke
Yeah.
up multiple times during that 30-day period? Oh my goodness.
And I
Wow.
had many red flags before I married him to know
Mm.
that this probably wasn't a good idea. But there was one time, and he told me a lie to break up with me in order to break up with me. He basically said that he was going to pursue same-sex relationships to break up with me. And I'm like, what? It's like, but I mean, I was devastated because I was really entrenched in the relationship. And then not only that, when he told me that news, I was about an hour and a half where I needed to be, and I didn't have a vehicle to get back, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh
And
my
so I
goodness.
had to call another friend to get,
Mhm.
picked up to go home. And this young person told me, he says, I don't know you for very long, but if you stay with this guy, I think you're in for a long road of hurt, and
Mm.
but then, to be quite honest, if I hadn't have been pregnant with my son, I would have never ever married him. We probably would have broke up within a month or so,
Right.
and that would have been the end of it. But um, I guess even in 1994, I felt like if I was the idea of being a single mom just didn't sit well with me, and
Mhm.
abortion was out of the question for
Right.
me. And it it there was a lot of choices that I had that I didn't know that I had, because I was under that illusion, allowing my father to control me. I
Oh.
had finished a 4-year degree with a double major in political science and journalism, and I was on the road to become a reporter.
Mhm.
The internship that I had right after I graduated turned into a permanent position, and I wasn't able to continue the long commute to work every day. And some days I didn't get off work till 11 because I was covering basketball games and school board and city council meetings.
Mhm.
And then I'd have to work the weekend. I mean, I get a day off during the week, but I'm a young person. I can do these things.
Right.
And my dad was not supportive of me because he wanted to keep me under his thumb at
Mm.
home. And he also just also told me that I wouldn't make it. I wouldn't even make. I'm like, wow, and so that's when I started hanging out with these group of friends, and they had a lot of chaos in their lives, and I allowed it in. And then I one evening I was like, I mean, my mind was so far gone that I bought a tent and pitched it in the backyard and ran the alarm clock with an extension cord so I could get up in the morning, because they would stay up all hours of the night. Nothing ever occurred to me to go ahead and get that apartment I looked at. I don't know what was wrong with my brain. I honest to goodness don't. And then when I woke up, it was 10:30 in the morning. It was, the paper I wrote for published 2 days a week, and it was press day. And so it's a very important day. And I just felt like a big failure. I felt like I let the owner down, and I quit my job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And yeah, because I don't know. There's just so many things. That was just a very chaotic time in my life. And then when I found I was pregnant, we're going to, plan to get married in 4 months. And you quit your job. And I decided to get a job as a cashier at a Walmart. And I was living off my credit cards because I refused to go home to my dad. I was so mad. And then involved with my ex that I really didn't know. And the main thing that really got me is that when he told that lie about me, he was pursuing same-sex relationship. I had bumped into one of his former high school classmates at a local bar and told them the story. And so my ex was doing this flip-floppy thing where he didn't know whether he wanted to commit to the relationship or not, because if I commit to it, then I have to be serious, and I don't know if I want to be serious. And so he kept going back and forth. And so he looked me up again, probably within 2 or 3 days. And then I told him this thing, and he's like, I can't believe you told him that. And threw a pack of cigarettes at me.
Oh my gosh.
He didn't go anywhere after that. He still stayed in the relationship. So that told me, my twisted mind, that told me that you must love me because you got mad at me and you still stayed.
And you stayed.
Other people that I've dated who have gotten mad at me or I've upset, they broke up with me, but you stayed. So you must love me. But the behavior was familiar because I grew up with it.
Right. So it didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary. It just seemed like that's what life is.
Right.
Wow.
And then for the next 5 years, my son was born at age 9 months. He was delayed. And then we started taking him with therapies. And then my son was diagnosed with autism. But all the while, because my ex-husband had actually also worked with people with disabilities because he worked as a teacher's aide, he would make comments like, I don't know why we're taking him to therapy because it's not going to change anything, but all I wanted him to do was to participate on your days off, to go with me to take our son to therapy because you're supposed to be a dad,
Exactly. Right.
But he was tired from the workday before, or the fact that he was hiding his drinking from me. I was only comfortable seeing him drink 3 beers a day. If you drank any more than that, then what's your problem? So he would let me see 3 and then hide the rest. And he did this for 5 years, up until the time I was pregnant with my youngest son. And about at 8 months pregnant, there was a whole to-do about needing something. We only had 1 car. I needed to get pull-ups for my son with the autism because gave the package to the bus driver to give the teacher. Their dad had never been gone all day. I mean, he was able to hide the drinking so well, but that day he'd been gone all day. He had a doctor's appointment, but he never came back. And I was in denial. I mean, completely denial, because I told my dad, I said, I don't know where he's at. He says, probably out drinking. My dad knew. I didn't know,
Wow.
And so when my brother-in-law came to town to get what I needed, they had past bad history. And my brother-in-law took the opportunity to clock him one, which I think is a dirty thing when somebody's like drunk. And so he conked his head on our concrete stoop, had a concussion.
Oh my goodness.
I had, because they were fighting outside, I called the police. I was just just very upset. And so then I decided to call my dad. I said, please come get me. I packed my bag, brought my my oldest boy, 4 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they lived 17 miles away in another town. And then I guess when he came to, my ex, he's like, called my mom and says, where's Teresa? Where's Sean? Oh, they're over here. He didn't recollect what happened the night before, other than his head hurt. And then my dad got intervened and wanted to see, I think you guys need to work this out. And so when he came over to talk, he said, Teresa, I think I might have a drinking problem. And it almost felt like, when Charlie, I'll say, I said this lots of times, it's like when Charlie Brown went to Lucy for help because he just wasn't in the Christmas spirit, 5 cents, please. And, do you have aragophobia or this phobia or that phobia? And then she said this, and he goes, what's that? The fear of everything. And he goes, that's it. And then Lucy flips back. So when my ex said, I think I might have a drinking problem, I'm like, that's it. That's the reason for your craziness, your insanity. Like, there would be so many things that it's like never made logical sense. It's like, I would tell him, it's like, I don't care that, the streets are icy and snowy. This is before direct deposit. We have bills to pay. You need to go to work, pick up your paycheck. And he would be like, yeah. And I'm like, what is wrong with you, nut freak? And then all at the same time, I was the nut. I was the crazy one. I was going down that crazy path right along with him. He was crazy. I was crazy. And when you're enmeshed in, I call it the pit of hell, was the first 5 years of our marriage. I knew no happiness, no joy whatsoever. And he started going to AA, and then his friends in the meeting says, well, Teresa will have to go to Al-Anon. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And then he goes, that's for friends and family of alcoholics. I said, I think I've done about enough. I'm not going to do any more. Thank you. And they said, if we want this marriage to survive, we're going to both have to go to our meetings. I'm like, oh, for Pete's sakes. And so then I started going, and I didn't want to go. And I kept coming up with excuses because my youngest boy, I breastfed both of my boys. And I said, well, if it's, the meeting's a half an hour away and the meeting's an hour and I'm not going to get back, I was like, I don't even know how you'll survive. He'll be the baby will be too upset, to wait for me back. And he's like, no, you go, we'll take care of it. So I went to my first meeting, and I literally just cried at my first meeting, and I'm a bullheaded lady. There was many people that they don't give advice, but they suggest.
Okay.
And if you don't, if you're still not, not with it, just they say, keep coming back. And so I did. For the first 3 years, I'm just like, what the heck are you people talking about? Your suggestions are working. Or they say, are you truly using the suggestion that we're giving you? And I would call in the middle of the night when we'd have an argument, and they would never talk about his part in it. They'd always talk about my part, because I could only control me.
Right.
And I would say, well, my alcoholic is different than your alcoholic. You just don't understand what's going on. I said, my alcoholic's trying to get sober. Yours is drunk every day. What recovery do you have, or advice for me? But yeah. And in the early days, I would also take my 2 sons with me. And the meeting they did have babysitting available, because they would take money out of the basket donations and give it to them for watching. And that was necessary for me to make my meetings. And so, although I would say starting at the age, my youngest son was 2. So 2 years in, he's trying to get sober. But things aren't getting better. And what I found out is that he also had bipolar. And so he was actually self-medicating his bipolar with the alcohol and the marijuana,
Oh, wow.
and then also too, when we first started going to counseling, probably not very far into our marriage, he was taking help for, these bipolar meds along with the alcohol, but that doesn't work because the medications aren't going to work if you're drinking. And so,
oh, wow,
it was really hard, because, the up and down moods of bipolar and the anger. And I will say, just by looking at it, because after he had been in AA a while, he realized that his mother was an alcoholic, an untreated alcoholic, an active alcoholic. And what he did is he carried the baggage from his childhood, and I carried the baggage of my childhood.
right.
His mother was controlling, my father was controlling. We both had this mindset, we're not going to allow the other person to control me.
Right.
Then I had my own controlling nature, because all of my life was out of control. So I was trying to assemble any little bit that would, that I could hold on to. And it was only by going through this recovery of the 12 steps that I learned that I can't control other people. I can only control me. And then I also learned detachment from other people's behavior. And I also learned that I have to take care of myself, because there were times that I would neglect taking care of me because I was so worried about what my husband was doing.
Right.
Well, did you take out the trash? Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do that? Well, it is not up to me for me to go through your list of to-dos. I need to take care of my to-dos.
Your own, right.
I mean, there was even one point where I was so entrenched in what he was doing or not doing that I neglected to take a shower. And then he had said something that really just irritated the crap out of me. And so I punched him in the rear end. And then he went off the handle about, just started getting irate and out of control and arguing with me. And I can't, this person has rage and throwing things and won't stop. And I called the police a lot, and they don't want to be to those domestic disputes,
Right.
And so they said, well, what happened here? And I just stood crying, bald face. Did you hit him? Yeah. So I went to county jail.
Oh, wow. For punching in the butt. Oh my goodness.
It's like, we're going to deter her from calling us. And I was breastfeeding. And let me tell you, it was a very bad weekend for me and my ex, because I had, to pump, and he would have to come to the county jail to pick up the milk.
Oh, wow.
And my little baby boy was miserable because he wanted mama and not, the baby bottle.
Right.
I mean, I just, so much insanity. And I finally I had to get a sponsor. I had to get a sponsor that would look through my bull crap, because I would give her all the excuses and all the ways of pointing the finger at my ex. Will say, when he did this and he did that. And she's like, excuse me, we can't do anything about what he did. What did you do? And so yeah.
this was a sponsor through Al-Anon.
Yeah.
And so you started your recovery from codependency through the Al-Anon 12 steps, and with Oh,
with a
wow.
sponsor,
Okay.
and they have a workbook that we work through. And
Mhm.
then when it comes time to share all the things that we need to get off our plate, they keep all that, that's a conversation that we have together that doesn't go outside of these two people, and we're asking God or our higher power to remove these defects of character. You
Mhm.
know, we can't do anything of this stuff on our own. And then there's some people in the group that don't believe in God. And so, their higher power might be the group or that. I mean, I'm a Christian myself, but sometimes we let them know that it's not a religious program, it's a spiritual program. But then, quite honestly, there are some people that come to belief after coming to the program, because it's a different way of getting to know God than through even church. Because my idea of God was this all powerful, you did this wrong, and well, it's comparable to what my earthly father was. My idea of
Right.
God now is somebody who's more loving and caring and gives me grace for making mistakes and
Right.
doesn't continually bring them up. Once you've asked for forgiveness, they're gone. Whereas humans, we tend to keep drudging up the past, and
Right. Right.
but God doesn't do that. And so it was just a whole new concept as to what God was. And then I continued to keep going to church through 5 separations over 6 years. There was so much anger
Wow.
in me, over the things that my ex would do.
Mhm.
We were separated and he was with another woman, but he didn't tell me until after he came home. And so I was full of rage and I wanted to punish him. And so my sponsor says, "You're so full of anger and rage, it's going to kill you." And he is too, but I'm your sponsor. So if you want me to continue to sponsor you, you're going to have to go to anger management. I'm like, oh my. But I was in so much pain and so wanting to get better.
Mhm.
And she said, I can't continue to sponsor you if you don't go to anger management. And I'm like,
Right.
I'm so desperate, I'm going to go, and so I did.
Mhm.
And after, uh, I don't know how long those classes lasted, but then um, after it was over, the group leader wanted me to go to individual counseling, and then after that, wanted to bring in my spouse.
Mhm.
And um, at the time, he chose that he didn't want to take bipolar meds because he hadn't been
Oh.
on them when he was young. And they do change up how you think and do. And
Mhm.
he said it makes it harder to concentrate on my job, to be on the medications, and so I don't want to take them. And I said, and I had been in recovery long enough. I said, okay, you do you, I do me. This is what you choose. And I just told him right there in the counselor's office, I said, the deed of the home has your name on it. The police say I can't kick you out. So you stay here for as long as you want us to both be miserable. But when you do go, the locks are going to be changed. And I think it went on for maybe a few 4 months. It happened
Mhm.
where we were supposed to go out on a date, and I had the kids babysitter, and I he just I couldn't locate him, so I'm like,
Oh,
sick old
wow.
me, still looking for him at the bar, and there he is. And I said, "What are you doing?" He says, "Because he knew for some reason in his mind he was miserable. He knew the relationship was miserable. He says, I'm here because we're probably likely going to get a divorce." I'm like, so be it then. And I just left because there's no need to talk to him about it. And so over the course of a year, I saved up money for a divorce attorney. Then after that, he got remorseful about it and wanted to work it out. And my divorce attorney said, no, I think she's prayed on this for a good while. And when you invest money in something, you're committed.
Yes.
You're not going to get that money back. So I'm just like, and I will say that I had a conversation with God around about this time, because I was just so like, we can't get along. It's not working. What do I do here? And I knew what it was like to be in a relationship and be miserable, but I didn't know what it was like to be divorced.
Right.
God said, it's time to let go, and I will take care of you. And I went through a lot of different temp jobs, working minimum wage, office jobs. But, with my son's Social Security, because he was disabled, and the child support, I was always able to make the bills. So, and whenever there was a time I was without a job for a couple of weeks, my church,
they would help out.
Gave me groceries, and my small group says, you have to take this, or you're robbing us of the blessing that we're getting by helping you.
By helping, right.
And I'm like, okay, I'll take your groceries. And I also had help from my parents, and so and then over the course of time, I'm actually able to have a little bit of a better relationship with my father, because even though his behavior was off the mark, I learned to tell him that was unacceptable to me, that I would never disrespect him in his own home, but that if he kept it up, I was just going to say politely, don't care for that.
Right. You had to choose yourself. Right. You have to choose you.
And then if you keep that up, I'm going to have to take my boys and go. And that one little instance, because there was a time where his behavior was off the mark, and I didn't talk to him for 2 weeks, and it bothered my dad more than it bothered me. When we had that conversation, I was like, I'll never disrespect you. But if you do that, then keep it up, then I'll have to go. And he knew that he had pushed it too far, because he liked to pester for some reason, or just say comments that he knew better, and so he stopped all that. And unfortunately, it took until I was 40 years old for it to happen, but
better late than never.
Had some semblance of a relationship. And my dad was such a controlling person that he actually was like trying to punish us or him. I don't know, but he would say, I don't want you celebrating my birthdays, Father's Day, or giving me any gifts, because I must have been an awful father, because none of y'all listened to any of the things that I told you to do. And I'm like, do you realize that we own our own choices? Whatever my brothers or my sister or I do is on us.
You're right.
No reflection of you as a bad parent. You did with what you could, and because he was a rouser in high school and a dropout and always running the town, he wanted to make sure that none of us did that, but
right.
But I mean, we own our, and I don't go back and say, I don't beat my 23-year-old up self and say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you choose that? I didn't know.
Right. Exactly. Know. You didn't have
no idea.
Exactly.
And so I'm trying to break this generational curse. My son will be 23 next month, and I support him in whatever he's doing. He's having a hard time right now with this ADHD and finishing school, but he's studying graphic art design. But my thing of it is that's what you want to pursue, and that's what you want to do. Or if you, I also want to move out and try it on your own, I will not stop you. I will support you when I can, but I can only do so much, you know.
Right, exactly. I'm going to wrap up real quick. Thank you so much for joining me on this interview today. And